Hey, this is Passy from Passy's World of ICT, the guy with the white hat. And this is our Southern Dog Club database build. And it's a new access course that's kind of like a beginner course for beginners, if that makes any sense. So remember, we're a bit of a slow talker, so make sure you go to the tools cog on the video and set the speed to either 1.5 or 1.75x so it flows better. Now, the reason we're doing the Southern Dog Club is we have got our access training course, which is Passy's Bargain Barn. And the feedback has been that is really good for like senior high school students in their final 2 years of school, but it's not so good for younger students learning access. Our feedback was it was a little bit complicated. So we've got Southern Dog Club, which is a simpler kind of beginners access course, which is going to cover the same sort of things as we'll see here. So we're going to look at the design of the database in this lesson that we've designed in Microsoft Excel. We will actually create the blank database and the two tables we need and get a project folder set up. So we'll go through how to do that. And let me see, we're going to create the two required tables in Design View and just put some data into those tables, create primary keys and relationships for the tables. So this lesson is all about setting up a database and setting up the tables, which is a very kind of foundation structure of your database. And we'll adjust the display settings and then we'll finally save our database at the end of the lesson. All right, so the Southern Dog Club has been in existence for 20 years and it's got over 150 members and over 100 dogs, mainly family breeds, Labradors, Beagles, Cocker Spaniels, Golden Retrievers, those sort of dogs. Now, Deanna and Ralph, who are pictured here, they're getting ready to retire at a beach house which they've bought, so they can't run this dog club anymore, but their daughter, Deanna, is like really dog crazy, Deanna Alvarez, and she's got more than one dog too, and she's going to take over running the club on a permanent basis. All right, now Deanna's been running it, her mother has been running the finances of the club using a very basic Excel spreadsheet and several written diaries and ledger books. So I think we got the names wrong there. Deanna's the mum and Juanita is the daughter. The daughter's taken over. So Juanita wants to make the running of the club a lot more efficient by moving all the club data to a Microsoft Access database, kind of bring it into the 21st century. And she's prepared to pay $3,000 for the build of the final full system, but she's getting you to just do a prototype at the moment. Okay, so you're going to do a prototype. This is going to track the dogs and mainly the members' club payments too, because they have to pay $60 a year to belong to the club, and they can do that by $60 one-off payment end of financial year before June 30th, or they can do 2 6-monthly $30 payments to bring it up to their $60. Now the task, you're going to build a small prototype version of the club database, which you can show to Juanita, and hopefully that will get approval for building the big one, getting the big job. And there's analysis. You've got to obtain some data, design, build, and test. So analysis stage is where we get down what is required of the database, what are the requirements, what business functions it has to do. This one we're keeping simple. The only function it really has to do is track those member payments to make sure their payments are up to date. We've got to gather some sample data, and we've got some sample data gathered for you, and then see what sort of queries and reports that the club wants to run to be able to keep track of things and manage things better. That's the whole reason why you put everything onto an Access database. After we've got analysis squared away, which we will do in this lesson, we'll get all the analysis sorted. Then you get into design, and the first thing is a tables design, and we'll do that in this lesson, and we'll build a database and build the basic tables and put some data into them, some initial data. Then there'll be separate lessons on doing the screen forms, separate lesson on the queries, separate ones on the reports, and separate ones on when we build and test it here. See, the second thing in that list is data validation. And that's actually going to be the lesson after this one. We're going to make sure when people are entering data that there's no typo mistakes and things aren't wrong with it. Then we'll get on to creating the screen forms, building queries and reports, and build a main menu once we've got everything else built. So that it'll be very easy to go to things from a main menu system, which will make a really good professional application. Okay, so there's downloads in a PDF document that's got the analysis. All right, so let's go and take a look at that. Okay, so the Southern Dog Club, as we discussed, the mother is Diana, the daughter is Juanita. Diana's been running the club with kind of a books system, just manually. Diana's going to bring it into the 21st century with a Microsoft Access database and the tasks. Let's have a look at the tasks here. So data collection, there's been a data collection form distributed to members just by normal snail mail, okay? So just post it out to them. Now we need to set it up, and we also helped to finalize the setup because we needed things like a member ID code and things, but people have to return on there their member name, so their postal address, their daytime phone number, which should be bolded there, can be the same as the mobile number. Actually, I think we took that out and we've actually only got a mobile number now. So it's just a mobile number, email address, member join date, membership fee, member fees paid. Okay, so sometimes during analysis, yeah, most people just use their mobile phone all the time. So there wasn't any point in having a daytime phone number. So we've actually scrapped that and people just enter a mobile number in. Then we need separate information about the dogs, and a member can have more than one dogs. So there's the dog name, the breed, the gender, whether it's been desexed, neutered or spayed yet is important, because dogs can't get spayed until they're a certain age. And we can show you our little doggy who's behaving himself at the moment. Have a look at the camera, Murphy. He's just been neutered, and that's why he's got that kind of cone, or what do they call it in English, something or other. I just call him bucket head, but he's being a good boy at the moment. But he has to wear that anyway because he's been neutered. So he was old enough to get neutered. But some dogs you need to wait till they're 1 year or 1.5 years old, the bigger dogs. But ideally, councils and municipalities like them to be desexed, because that lowers your registration fee. And at the dog club, so there isn't complete craziness if some female dog's on heat and there's male dogs which aren't neutered, they want all the dogs to be desexed by the appropriate age for that dog. So we need to keep track of that and list the dogs which aren't desexed and contact the owners and just ask them if they're organising that to happen sometime soon. There's a dog registration number which is done by a municipality, so we need to keep track of that. That's like the dog's tag, because it has to be registered. There's the birth year of the dog. We're just going to have the year, we're not going to celebrate his birthday and send him a cake or anything. The dog breeder, if there was a dog breeder for the dog, where they got it from a breeder, or it can be unknown if it was just maybe a rescue dog or something like that. The dog date, the date joined the club, because the member might already be a member of the club and have one dog, and then they get another dog, or they have to get a replacement dog, and that dog joins later on. So the dog has its own joining date, okay? So each member is allowed to have more than one dog enrolled in the club. So we've got some sample data here already, which we're going to use when we build this little prototype database. So that's Juanita Alvarez, living in Mentone, mobile number, email number, the date she joined, fees paid. She's paid all the fees, she's paid the full $60, and she's got 3 dogs in the club. So here's her dogs. Coco, the little brown lab puppy, is so cute. There's a Kelpie called D-Mac, who's a bit of a crazy one, and a big black Labrador retriever. What a big head that guy's got. So she's got 3 dogs because she loves dogs so much. And here's another member, Desiree Laporta, who lives in Brighton. She's got a German Shepherd. And we've got a few other members here. And we've got my partner, Nicky New, with our little Murphy, before he had the cone on his head when he got desexed. So we've got all those members here, and there's little Murph. And so that's data. So we've got data. Planning and designing. So we need a database design. Now, obviously there's 2 things in this club. There's kind of the members and the dogs. And because they can have more than one dog, you can't kind of just join it all in one, members and dogs. What you need to have is a member record, and then off that member record, you can have 1 dog, 2 dog, 3 dogs, all right? So you need member records and you need dog records separately, okay? So we do a data structure table. Now at senior years, that's important, but where we're starting, we'll do it for you, because this is just kind of like a beginner's Microsoft Access. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so in the downloads for the Southern Dog Club, this lesson, you'll be able to get the database tables design. So we figured out what are all the things we need. Now we also need a member ID code in case there's two people called, Jason Smith or something like that. We can give them codes so we know who's who. And we've got all those fields we talked about, and these are the type they have to be in Access. Most of them are just text fields, just got letters of the alphabet in them, and maybe some numbers and some dashes for a phone number. But currency for the money, so the money thing has to be in currency, and dates have to be in date format, all right? And this is how long the fields need to be, because Access defaults them at 255 characters long, which is way too long. I don't think you're going to have someone with a last name that's 255 characters long, no matter how many hyphenated names they put in it. And there we go. And then here's the member dogs table, the other table, okay? And we've got these things called validation rules too. Now we'll get into them in lesson 2. So in lesson 1, you're just worried about these first 4 columns. And in lesson 2, let's just go to this tab here at the bottom. Lesson 2, we're going to talk about the validation, all right? So we've got all those validation rules. But in lesson 1, you just need to worry about these first 4 columns, the field name, what type you need to set it up in Access, and how long you need to set it up in Access. All right, so you get that design document with the downloads, and that's going to help you do the lesson. This lesson, we're setting up the database tables. All right, so back to this analysis document, which is another thing you get with the downloads for this lesson. So task 3 will be using Microsoft Access to create the database, and we're going to make the tables today, but later on we'll have to make a members entry form, okay, with some validation, and we have to make a dogs data entry form as well, and have photos of the members and dogs on those forms. And then we're going to need some queries. So the queries, let's just zoom in a little bit here. The queries, we need a list of all the members containing their names alphabetically and their email address. So we need an email address, a phone list, we need a contacts list, we need an overdue fees list. So around the 30th of June, the end of financial year, we can see who hasn't paid their full $60 yet. So we've got to take care of that. And there's a couple more queries as well. We need a list of all the dogs in the club, the dogs list, and we need one that has some member information as well as the dogs. So that's going to be dog owners. We want to find out ones, the dog club's based in the municipality of Kingston in Melbourne, which is kind of near the bay, sort of a bit of a way out of the city, probably half an hour out of the city, I guess 40 minutes out of the city maybe, along the beachfront. So most of these dogs are in the Kingston area. So we want to query just to know who are the Kingston dogs, the local dogs that live near where the dog club operates from, and who are the non-Kingston dogs. So we need those two things which we get from the registration municipality. We can work that out, whether it's Kingston or not. And we want to know those dogs that are not desexed yet, because remember, we want everyone to have their dog desexed eventually when it's the right age for the dog. And Murphy's just gone to sleep here with his little cone on. He's being such a good boy during this video. I'm so glad, because sometimes he barks and goes crazy. Let's just have a quick little look at him. That's what we like to see. Now the phone's ringing, of course. Okay, the other thing is database reports. The following reports are required. A report showing all the members' contact details with their names sorted alphabetically. So once you've done the queries, you'll be able to turn some of those queries, 4 of them here, into reports. So we're going to do some reports as well. That'll all be in a separate lesson, and queries will be in their own separate lesson. Switchboard menu, the main menu for everything when we've got it finished, will be in its own separate lesson. And then just something to make it nice and professional, welcome screen and what's called a splash screen just on the front of the application. We won't probably worry about a password. Maybe we'll put password on it, I don't know. We'll see about that when we get there. And you've got to make sure you're testing the database the whole time along, and then give it one big test at the end when it's got all of that sample data in it. And then we'll have all our doggies in the dog club, and we'll be ready to go with the database. So that'll be really good. So let's get back into how we're making the tables for the database today. Okay, so the tables design, we had a look at that in Microsoft Excel. So we've got the club members table with these fields we need to set up in the database. So you have a record for each member. Okay, and then we have information about each member, and each one of these kind of boxes is called a field. So the members table will have records in it, okay, for each member will have their own record, and every record will have all of these fields in it, which is specific information about the member. And we're also going to have one for the dog. So we'll need to have a special separate one here that lists all the special information in these guys called fields for the dog. Okay, now the member ID code, we need to also put in that dogs table what the member ID code is for the member who owns that dog. Otherwise, we'll never be able to figure out which dog belongs to which member. So we need to make sure we do that. A lot of times you'll be thinking about, okay, what's all the stuff about the dog? And forget about this one, which is kind of the linking field, as we'll see later on when we build the database relationships. So let's get started creating this in Microsoft Access, the 365 version. So I think this is like a 2019 version. It's very similar to the 2017 version. It's not that much different. But when you open Microsoft Access and you click on create a new blank database, so you want blank database, and we're going to be creating one. Now what you need to do here is you have to click on this little folder in here, so make sure you don't miss this step. Otherwise Access will just save it off somewhere on your C drive where it wants to save it, where you'll probably never be able to find it again. So you've got to click that folder and make sure it goes to where you've got a folder set up for this Southern Dog Club learning that you're doing. Okay, and we've just called it SDC_tables. And leave that .accdb. That's the type of file it is in Access Database, just like .doc for Word and .xls for Excel. So don't go messing with that. Make sure that's there. And then you click OK, and that'll close that down. Then you can click your create right at the end to create the database. Now, when you create it, it's just going to make a table called Table 1. And the very first thing you have to do, this is kind of back to front to what you'd think. Usually you'd put stuff in and then save something, like save a Word document after you've typed things into it. With Access, we need to save this table up front when we first made it. And then again, of course, save it at the end when we put the data into it. So the first thing to do is there's a little save icon up the very top left-hand corner of Microsoft Access. You need to click on that, and the table name is going to be members. That's pretty simple. So you type in members. That big line there is just where the cursor is that normally be flashing, and click OK. So you need to do that. And then what you should see is in this left-hand side that it's now got the table called members, and your table's sitting here ready to go. All right, now we're going to define the field containers, all those different things like member ID code, their first name, last name, email address, all that stuff. And you need to do that in Design View. So make sure you're on the Home tab. And when you're on the Home tab, you should have this View thing in the top left-hand corner. And you click that little triangle arrowhead there, and you've got to change it out of Datasheet View, click onto Design View. Okay, so you need to click that little triangle arrowhead and get it into Design View. And what should happen in Design View is you get two columns here and another column here called description, which we're not going to bother putting anything in. But you can see we've started it here already. We've done member ID code and we've typed in last name, and they're just short text data types. All right, so we've started typing things in. Now, as you type them in, last name doesn't need to be 255 characters long, right? So it says here field size 255. No one has a last name that long. So we're just going to change that down to 30, 40, or 50, okay? Just put 30 here, but if you put 50, that's fine. Just don't make it like 150 or 255. That's way too big. So as we're doing each of these, we're also going to go down into this field size and just change that to a proper acceptable, reasonable size, okay? So these are all the ones you need to type in: member ID code, last name, first name, street, suburb, all of those. And you can get those from that Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, which is in the downloads. Now notice just now that member ID code, just notice that that's got a little key next to it. We're going to talk about that later on, but that's the unique identifier for each member, because two members could have the exact same name. So that's a unique identifier. And we're going to talk about that a bit more later on. And also on these fields, currency, date, time. Yeah, make sure these ones, most of them are short text. That's the most common field in Microsoft Access. But the membership fee and the amount they've paid is money. So set that as currency. And of course, the date is a date time field. So set that as date time when you're doing that. All right, so they're all the fields when we've got them defined. And we use that from the information from the tables design, that Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Make sure the field lengths are data types like short text, and they're all specified in the design. Okay, so make sure you follow that design. After they're entered like this, we can now click on that view triangle again and change back to Datasheet view this time. So there's two views of the table, one when we're sort of setting it up and designing it, which we've just done. Then the main one we're going to use now is Datasheet view. Now we'll just show you something too to save you time about putting things side by side. Okay, so we're in Microsoft Access with our table in design view at the moment. What you can do is you push down on this top bar. So you go to the very top brown red bar here, and you can pull that all the way across like this. And then you can go to your Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and you click on the green bar at the top and hold your mouse down, and you can pull that all the way over to the other side till it won't go any further, then let go. Okay, and then we can stretch down. We should be able to stretch down. Let me just get to the stretchies. So get those double arrows, then push down your mouse and drag. And then you can have these side by side while you're typing them in and working on things. So you can also have instructions document like a PDF or a Word document here side by side as well. You can do things side by side. Now, when you want to go back to the full view, just click the full screen, and when you want to go back to that side by side, just drag it over there and then let go, and it should split it in two. And you can move the middle sections as well. Okay, so you can do that to make one wider and so on. So that's just another handy tip to know. Okay, entering data in Datasheet view. So we've changed from view to Datasheet view now, and we can see here are all the field names of the things that have to be entered for each member. And now we can start entering the members' information in these little boxes here. Okay, and you have to start at this box and go across and finish this member. Don't jump down and try and do boxes randomly. That will get you into trouble with Microsoft Access. And there'll be another one on the end to click to add a new field or something. Make sure the one on the end which isn't shown there, you don't click on that as well. So after we click the view icon, we're ready to enter data for the members. And like I was saying, get them side by side. So here's the PDF of that analysis that has all the details in there of the members and their dogs. So you can slide that over to the left and have this one on the right, and then you can type them in as you go. So you can see we're typing in now the member ID code. We need to tell you how to make that. The member ID code is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first 5 letters of their last name, Alvarez. Okay, now her name is supposed to be spelt with an A, I think, not an E. I'll have to go and fix that up somewhere along the way there. It should be Alvarez, not Alvarez. Well, maybe, anyway, we've done a typo there, we need to fix that. So it's Alvarez, Juanita, and Mentone for that one. And then you can go across and do postcode and all the other things. And then there's another member too. The next one's Desiree Laporta with that German Shepherd. Put her stuff in. Now just stop there. Only do 2 members. That's all we're going to do at this stage. Because the other members we'll do after we've added validation after the next lesson. And then some more members we'll do after we've done the form. So we're not doing them all on this lesson. We'll be doing them as we go through the course. So at this stage, only enter those first 2 members. And make sure too, this member image location, that's going to be added on when we put the pictures onto the forms. That's not going to be for a few lessons yet. So that one's just left blank, but we need it in there, but don't put anything in it at the moment. That's the only blank one. Okay, and we're just having those 2 records in. So pause the video if you need to, get that typed into your database, and then after you've typed it in, make sure you click that save button up the top left-hand corner there to save it. Oh yeah, and when you want to close the table too, see this X on the tab? You just close it with that little X there, all right? So that's how you close it after you've saved it. So it's going to save and then close. All right, defining phone numbers. Phone numbers are a bit of a problem in computer systems. You'd think the phone number, you're going to make it the data type number, but you notice that we made our short text, and there was a reason for that too. That if you do change them to number, you lose the 0 on the front. Because numbers like 12 aren't written as 012 and they're not written as 0012. It's just written as 12. They don't put the leading zeros or the front zeros. They just get automatically taken off. So if you do decide to change your phone to number, because you think, it's a phone number, it should be a number, which is a perfectly valid way of thinking, Access will take your 0 off the front. Okay, so in the masks validation lesson, the next lesson, we're going to look at how to fix up phone numbers and be able to enter them a lot better with dashes in them and things like that. Okay, now this one was taken from a different database by the looks of it. That's from another database from the bargain barn, but the idea is still exactly the same. So don't be worried that these are different values in here. That's all good. We're just showing you that principle. Don't change a phone to a number, leave it as short text. Okay, now we're ready to create the dogs table. Right, so we've been going for a while, 25 minutes or so. So if you need a break, just pause the video and then use the video timeline index to come back to the video up to where the dogs table is. So if you finish your members table, got your 2 members entered in, just take a break and come back and do the dogs table by looking at the timeline index in the video description. Okay, so creating the dogs table. We've closed off our members table and now we go create table. Okay, so we're not on the home tab anymore. We're going to the create tab and we do table and then we immediately save it. Remember, the first thing to do whenever you get a table, because it's just called it table 1 here. So we need to click that save button up the top left-hand corner and call it members dogs. Now that line is just the cursor, but it's called members dogs, and then click the OK. I love that Duxie there in his little coat. Obviously, I'm a dog lover, but I hope you are too. Now, then we go into view, design view. This is all stuff we did with the members table, if you remember doing that. And we've got to enter all of these things. So if you go to the Excel document and look at it, there's all these things to enter, or you can pause the video here and you need to put all of those in short text. Year born is actually going to be a number, so it could be born in 2005 or 2018. There's a cute little Roddy puppy. And the join date has to be date time. Remember, the member ID code, and it has to be spelt exactly the same as it is in the members table, just like this, and that needs to be short text, and the length of that is 8, okay, just like it was in the other table. So make sure member ID code is length 8. That's very important. It's the exact same name and the same length as in the other table, otherwise our tables won't link together properly later on when we do that. So set the correct field size and the type for each field as well, and that's all in the Excel. It tells you how long to make each field, how big the fields are. Okay, so when you're doing type, that's when we're talking about like making year born a number. And on number, by the way, it's just leave it as long integer. Okay, that's the default number format for Access. It doesn't sounds like, why do I need a long integer? It's only going to be a year like 2018, 4 digits, but just leave it as long integer. Trust me, that's how you do it in Access. Okay, so that all needs to be set up. That's the design on the design view for the dogs table. Now we're going to enter data into the dogs table, but again, we're not entering all the data which is in that analysis PDF from the downloads. We're just going to have these first 4 dogs. So we're having all of Juanita's dogs, Coco, D-Mac, and Fritz, the big black Labrador Retriever. And then we're going to have Desiree's German Shepherd entered as well, Maximilian, the German Shepherd. All right, so we need to enter all that stuff in. And the member ID code, her name's La Porta with a space, but the first 5 digits of her last name are L-A-P-O-R. So that's how we set up the member ID, and it's 001. But anyway, just use these IDs that are here and just use AR in here, okay, and we'll go and change her name spelling in the analysis document so you get the right one in the downloads. Okay, now we're going to add all those other dogs after we've done the validation lesson, and also when we're doing the forms lesson we'll add a few of them as well. So get the member ID code, go back to the members table at the dogs owner. It's important that those match up exactly the same. Otherwise, we won't be able to link members to their dogs properly. And we won't know whose little chocky brown Labrador Coco, whose doggy that is. So we need to make sure we get all of that right. Now, again, you're clicking, there's a save icon up the top left-hand corner, which you can't see here, and clicking that X to close the table. And also another thing is just make sure you've only got one object, one table open at a time. If you can do that in Microsoft Access, it's not a good idea to have lots of things opened all together because they all need to be kept in sync behind the scenes by Microsoft Access. And if you've got them all open at once making changes, it can get your database out of sync and you can have problems. So best policy is just to open one thing at a time, just the thing you're working on, and work on that. Okay, we're getting near the end. I think we've done most of the hard work and we're onto primary keys for the tables. All right, so in our database, we have this member ID code. Now that's called a primary key. That's a unique identifier in case another Juanita Alvarez joins up, and we can see her spelling there is correct, and that's all matching up. And we make it different for people with the last same name. We have a unique identifier called a primary key. All right, and for the dogs, their unique identifier is their registration number. So they're going to have those registration numbers, 4 digits and a dash, a hyphen or a minus sign, then 2221. No other dog in Kingston's going to get that registration number, okay? So that's a unique identifier for the dog, and that's what we're using. All right, so dogs have a primary key as well. Now, how do you make sure all these primary keys are set up properly? And we find these everywhere in the real world too. Like, that's why you have a driver's license number, because 2 people could have the same names. A social security number, a tax file number. Social security is USA, tax file is Australia, a credit card number, student number, all those sort of unique identifier numbers are primary keys, and they have to have those so they can put your information into a database. In Microsoft Access, we define these using this primary key button. So when you're in design view, you may have noticed this, that there's this key symbol called primary key, and this first one already had a key on it. So it was kind of already done for Access for us. Access always figures the first field you're putting in is the primary key field. Now, clicking that turns it on and off, and we'll take this primary key on and off that field. So if you clicked on that field, what you can do is try this out. When you click that primary key icon up here, the primary key should disappear, and that's no longer a unique field, and Access would let you type in the same value twice and not give you that protection. But make sure you turn it back on again by clicking it, so that when you close this and finish playing around with it, it does have that key there, because that way Access won't let you type another ALVAR001. It'll make you type something different if you're doing another Juanita Alvarez who's joined the club. So yeah, so that's the explanation of that. Access knows that that key's already in use and won't let you use the key twice. So it's doing all that for you. So make sure you've got that key turned on for the member ID code. All right, now we link the relationship so that we know whose doggy belongs to which owner. And how we do that is we've got these members' dogs, 4 of them, and we've got a member ID code here. So see how for those first 3 dogs, it's ALVAR001. And if we look that up in the members table, there were Juanita's 3 dogs. This one's got a different member ID code. Maxie, the German Shepherd, is Laporte001. So that belongs to Desiree Laporta. Okay, so that's why we put that member ID code and made it exactly the same. That's how we link them up. But we have to actually tell Access about that linking. Okay, so we've got to tell that to Access that we've designed our database to do it like that. Now, there's these terms called foreign key and primary key, which you might see mentioned somewhere if you're watching videos or reading about Microsoft Access. What this is, this was the primary key, remember, the unique identifier for a member. Now, if you put that same primary key value off in some different table, it's called a foreign key. It's a bit like Desiree, it's like the main country you live in. So if you live in Australia and you've got an Australian passport, that's your primary country. But if you travel with your passport to some other country, then you're a foreigner in that country. You've got a foreign passport. So this key is a foreign key when it's in a different table. Okay, don't worry about that. Don't memorize it or anything, but just know if you see that somewhere, the primary key is where the person actually lives and all their information is, just like them living in a country. When they go overseas, all they do is stamp their passport. They don't care where they live or what their postcode is or anything. And they're just interested in that number when they're in the foreign area where the other things are. Now, how do we tell Access about that linking? Well, you go to Database Tools and you go to Relationships, all right? So this isn't a counseling service if you're having difficulty with that girl or boy that you're interested in your life. This is for making database relationships. So Database Tools and Relationships. And what will happen then is you get this panel shows up that says Show Table, and there's all the tables that are in your database. We've only got 2. Make sure you click Add on the first one to add members in, and on the second one, make sure that's highlighted and you add that as well. So you add both of these tables into the relationships, and then what happens is it'll show the 2 tables next to each other. Now, they might be bunched up, so you might have to stretch them, and we'll show you what we mean by that. Okay, we've already got our relationship link built in there, but what usually happens is when you add them in, it doesn't show them full length. I don't know why. It'd be nice if it had the smarts to realize that that's how long the table is, but to stretch it out, you go to the bottom of the table, and when you get the double arrows, Then you push down the left mouse button and drag to open it up. And sometimes they're squashed sideways too, and you can't read the full length of the field. So again, you just go to the side till you get those double arrows. When you get those, push down the mouse button and drag. People who have used Microsoft Excel and changed column widths will know about this, but other people may not. Okay, so we stretch them out so we can see everything that's in there. And it's this member ID code with this member ID code that we're trying to link together. All right, so it's pretty easy actually. All you do is you click in the first one here, then hold your mouse button down and drag as if you were drawing a line and click until you get to the other one, then let go of the mouse, okay? So it's a matter of ruling a line, or you could start on this one, click on this, hold down your mouse, make a line, and when you get to that one, just let go of the mouse button. And what will happen is it'll then go to this panel, and you can see we're going to be linking up member ID code in the members with member ID code in members dogs. That's exactly what we want to do. So you just click the create button to do that, and then you should have your relationship there, okay? And then click on the red screen X here to close it. Now what the relationship line will be is what we saw on our one that we just looked at before. There'll just be a line, a thin line that comes between those two, okay? Showing that they are linked together. So once you've got that linking line, that's all done and we've made the database relationships. Now we just need to do some database settings and then save it and we're done. So at the top of the Access screen, along all those tabs like File, Home, Design, all those ones, click the File one, and then you need to click not Home, but go right down the bottom and click this one called Options. So up the top, click File. It'll open up this panel on the left-hand side. Go down the very, very bottom there and click on Options. And the options will be on General to start off with. You need to click on Current Database. So make sure you're on Current Database. Now, application title, this is important you put this in. Southern Dog Club, because in the next lesson on validation, it'll have that as a little heading for every error message automatically because it was put in here. So make sure you put it in with spaces and spell it correctly, put that in. And we're going to change our document. It was tab documents with those X's we could close down. We're going to actually use overlapping windows instead. So we're just changing that to overlapping windows instead of tabs. So we're just doing those two things there. And then you close that off and we're ready to save the database. So the save icon in that top left-hand corner just saves the table or thing that you're currently working on. To save the whole database, we have to do something different. So to save the whole database, you go to that File one again, but instead of clicking Options, you click Save As. So you go to File and Save As, all right? So we go File up the top, and then we click on Save As, and it'll say Save Database As. Just leave it as this sort, the .accdb, that's the sort we want, and then click the Save As button. And what will happen then is it'll take you into a Windows Navigator, so make sure you've navigated to where you're saving your work, and you save it as SDC_tables ACCDB, which should be the same name as we had before. So it should just come up in that folder that you nominated originally, and then you can save it. Now, if you forgot to do that folder right back at the start, when we started the database, this is your opportunity to save it from that silly C drive folder Access is choosing and use the folders to navigate to where your thing is. Our one's in L1, Lesson 1, Intro and Tables, and SDC_tables, leave the .accdb on there, so it's a database, and save it. All right, Access, if they do ask to replace the current database, which they should do because we set it up at the beginning to be in this folder, just say yes, okay? So if this message comes up, confirm the save as, just say yes on that one, and then your database is saved. So what we've done in this lesson is we've defined the members table, and we've put 2 of the members in there with their unique primary key identifiers and all their information, and we've put in 4 dogs, the 3 dogs that belong to Anita Alvarez, and the 1 dog, Maxie the German Shepherd, that belongs to Desiree Laporta. Okay, so that's the start of our dogs database, and we are up and running. Now, still a few other members and dogs when you look at that analysis download PDF document, but we'll get get those done in subsequent lessons because we want some more test data to put in when we're doing the forms and when we're doing validation and things like that. So where to next? Where we're going to next is we're creating the data input validation. Okay, so member fees have to be greater than 0 and not bigger than 60. So we're going to set up things like that. We have ticked off and colored in here that we've done create database and tables that contain some sample test data. So that's ticked off. That's where we're going next. After that, we need to create the queries to make some reports. We're going to need to create screen forms for both the members and the dogs. Input masks. We'll do some of those in the validation, but the ones for the forms we will need to do after we've made the forms. We're going to make drop-down lists on the forms to do validation and help out with data entry. We're going to then add member and dog images onto the form. So it's a lot of work to do on the screen forms because the screen forms are what the users use to interact with the database. So there's a lot of work to do on them. Then we'll create those reports. We've got our queries done and we're just going to turn some of them into reports. And last of all, we're creating that main menu switchboard and the opening splash screen. Okay, so there's pretty much all of those dot points. There's going to be a separate video and lesson on each of those. I'm not sure when the lessons are coming, but we're trying to get this tables and validation one, the first two, pushed out very quickly, as quick as we can. So that's the end of the Southern Dog Club tables lesson working with Microsoft Access, and that's our little boy Murphy without his bucket on his head. Thank goodness he stayed asleep the whole time. Usually he's scratching around and he's making all these noises during videos and it's a debacle. I tried to time it. He usually has a sleep this time of the afternoon, so I tried to time it and I've done all right. So speaking of timing and that, you're going to have a great time doing our Microsoft Access course, so subscribe to our database. Don't be shy, subscribe to the database so you'll get notified when that validation lesson comes up. And also give this one a big thumbs up because it's a lot simpler than the Bargain Barn was, and it's kind of the beginners access tables. And we hope you're a dog lover and you're going to have lots of fun with this, and we'll see you in the next lesson.